Today's lesson is it time to kill the death penalty? Hello, I'm Mike.
I am Roger, and today we're going to try to answer the question, is it time to kill the death penalty? I think most people in Taiwan would say, no way, we like our death penalty. You foreigners may want to get rid of your death penalty, but we're going to keep ours. Thank you very much. But instead of trying to tell you whether we support the death penalty or whether we are opposed to the death penalty, we've decided to hear some opinions from various people. Now, last time we heard from Chloe, and she believes in the death penalty. She says the families deserve closure, and of course she thinks that it will probably deter crime and it will send a message that society won't put up with these actions. Joseph is kind of doubtful. He's not convinced that the death penalty will prevent crime, and he's looking for actual statistics as to show us that the death penalty actually lowers crime, and he thinks it's more about revenge than justice. We also heard from Ethan, didn't we?
That's right, Ethan. He was saying that there are wrongful convictions. People end up convicted of murders that they didn't commit. They're innocent people who end up in jail through a combination of errors and bad luck and who knows what else. But this has happened where, DNA evidence has come out many years later to show that no, that person who's in jail for that crime, they didn't commit that crime. And of course, if that person has already been executed because of a death penalty law, you can't bring those people back. And so in that situation, the government has murdered an innocent person. So if that can possibly happen even once, Ethan kind of would say that the death penalty, it's not a law that we should allow to be on the books because we can't allow that possibility to be a reality in society. So today we're going to be hearing from a few other people. We've got Aiden, we've got Megan, Zoe, and Julia, and Lauren, and we're going to hear all about their different opinions and attitudes towards the death penalty. So let's get into it with Aiden first.
Aiden, speaking as an economist, there are cost implications to consider. Death penalty cases are generally very expensive, particularly when you factor in the appeals process. The resources could be better spent on crime prevention and rehabilitation programs.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 economist， 它的意思是经济学家。例如 As an economist, Jenny focuses on studying the effects of inflation on spending. 身为经济学家 Jenny 专注于研究通膨对消费的影响。或者 Donald is an economist at an university and also a popular author. Donald 是一所大学的经济学家，也是一位受欢迎的作家。接着看到 implication 这个单字，它是名词，表示可能引发的后果或影响，也可以是含义或是暗指的意思。例如 The environmental implications of the project were thoroughly discussed. 这个项目的环境影响被彻底讨论了。或是 The new law has serious implications for small businesses. 新的法令对小企业有严重的影响。再来看到名词 prevention， 它的意思是预防或是妨碍、阻止。例如 The organization created an advertisement to promote the prevention of forest fires. 这个组织制作了一支广告来提倡预防森林火灾。也可以说 For the prevention of heart disease, it's a good idea to exercise regularly. 为了预防心脏疾病，经常运动是个好主意。另外补充这个字的动词 prevent, P-R-E-V-E-N-T, prevent. 举个例子 Wearing sunscreen prevents your skin from getting sunburned. 涂防晒可以防止皮肤被晒伤。另一个例子 The police prevented us from entering the building. 警方阻止我们进入这栋大楼。
Okay, so let's talk about Aiden here. Here is his opinion. He says, speaking as an economist, there are cost implications to consider. So this person has studied economics. He's an expert at this. That's probably what his job is. He's an economist. And as an economist, speaking as an economist from that point of view, there are cost implications to consider. So if you talk about the death penalty, well, you're talking about cost implications. An implication is sort of like a conclusion, the result of something. And yes, indeed, if we have the death penalty, there's going to be some money involved with this, so we need to take that into consideration.
Yes, I think they've shown that because of all the different legal appeals and also keeping death penalty prisoners in a special type of prison, it ends up being a lot more expensive having someone be on death row or waiting to be executed than it would just to lock that person up for 25 years or the rest of their life. It says death penalty cases are generally very expensive, particularly when you factor in the appeals process. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has the right to a lawyer, and if the case goes against you, you may end up locked up in jail, but that isn't the end of your case. You can appeal that case. When you appeal something, you're kind of, in a legal sense, you're kind of asking for something, or you're trying to get a higher court to look at your case and find problems in the case, and maybe you get another chance at justice. Maybe you get another chance at having your case retried. And each one of those things can take many, many years and require a lot of expensive lawyers and all sorts of legal work to be done. So it slows down the judicial process. It slows down what judges and juries and lawyers can do. And it ends up just costing a lot of money when people do appeal their convictions to the highest court in the land. It can also, as I said, take 10 years or more to go through all of those things. And so for Aiden, who's looking at the death penalty as a dollars and cents issue, the resources spent on all those appeals and the lawyers and all that time, the resources could be better spent on crime prevention and rehabilitation programs. So let's try to avoid having people end up in jail for terrible things like murder by having more money go to crime prevention. Stop the criminals from becoming criminals when they're still young, when we can still reach them before their lives become so desperate that they're living lives of crime and violence. Prevention is preventing something, stopping something from happening, or stopping it from happening in the most terrible kind of way. Fire prevention things around your home might be smoke alarms and fire extinguishers and making sure all your electrical machinery is in good condition and stuff like that. Just stopping bad things from happening. And rehabilitation, well, once people end up in jail, we don't just lock them up and punish them and make their lives terrible and hope that when they leave, they just won't come back because jail is so bad. No, let's find out some of the reasons they're in jail. They don't have an education. They don't have a job. They can't get work. They have emotional problems. They have psychological problems. They need therapy and help. This is all kind of rehabilitation. If you hurt yourself, fall down and hurt your knee while playing sports, you could get physical rehabilitation here. This is more social and criminal rehabilitation, making sure that people, once they end up in jail, don't end up back in jail after they've been released because they don't have the skills to live peacefully and legally in normal society.
Yes, indeed. So Aiden's point of view is an economic one. It's actually more cost effective to not have the death penalty. But I think most people would probably say, well, spending all that money is a small price to pay for justice. But again, that's Aiden's opinion. And let's go on now in the second part of our lesson and find out what Megan and Zoe have to say.
Megan, as far as I'm concerned, people forfeit their right to live when they commit murder. What's that saying again? An eye for an eye? That seems fair to me. Zoe, I'm torn on this issue. There are valid points on both sides, but maybe we're arguing over the wrong thing. Instead, we should focus on addressing the root causes of violent crime, such as poverty and mental illness.
第二部分介绍动词 commit， 表示犯罪或是做坏事。我们可以说 During the trial, the defendant was accused of committing a crime. 在审讯期间，被告被指控犯下一项罪行。下一个看到形容词 valid， 它的意思是合理的、有根据的或是有效的。例如 You need a valid reason to request a leave of absence from work. 你需要一个合理的理由来请假。或是Bridget's train ticket is only valid until the end of the week. Bridget 的火车票仅在这个周末之前有效。
All right, we are back. We have two more opinions here on the death penalty. Let's get into Megan and Zoe's opinions, see what they think, where they sit on this issue. Megan begins. She says, as far as I am concerned, people forfeit their right to live when they commit murder. What's that saying again? An eye for an eye? That seems fair to me. All right. Well, Megan has a very sort of black and white view of this issue. We could almost say a biblical view. She's actually quoting from the Bible, an ancient text. She's kind of taking her morality from there. As far as she's concerned, in her opinion, if you ask her, this is what she believes and thinks and will tell you, people forfeit or give up their right to live when they commit murder. So if you choose to pick up a knife or a gun or whatever weapon of violence, I guess even your hands, and kill someone, take someone's life illegally, you have given up your right to life at the same time. This is clearly if you are guilty of that crime. But to forfeit something is to give up something, right? You forfeit your rights when you kind of say, I know I have rights, but I won't claim them right now. I won't keep them close to me or lean on them. I'm giving them up for now. So they forfeit their right to live when they commit murder. People might forfeit their rights when they're very ill, when you're older, and you can't make your own decisions. You have to forfeit some of your rights to your children or to a lawyer because you can't take care of yourself. So you're kind of legally choosing to give up some of your rights and freedoms. So people, by that act of violence, are giving up their right to life when they commit a murder. When you commit a crime, that means basically you do the crime. You've committing murder, of committing burglary, whatever, you did that crime. That is a crime or an illegal act that you chose to take part in.
Yes, indeed. If you commit murder, you should be willing to pay the price with your life. You should be able to forfeit your right to live. You should confess and say, yes, I don't deserve to live. Please shoot me between the eyes. Now, here's what Zoe has to say. I'm torn on this issue. So if you're torn about something, you just are not sure about it and you're kind of feeling uncertain about it. You're feeling kind of bad about the fact that you can't make a conclusion. Yeah, I'm torn on this. Should I go to Harvard or should I stay at home and work for a while and save some money? Yeah, I'm torn on this. I just don't know what to do. And there are valid points on both sides. If something's valid, it is considered acceptable. It supports a point of view. And yes, she does say that, yes, people who do support the death penalty have a point. They're not just making these things up. They are reasonable. They are logical. And people who are against the death penalty have reasonable arguments as well. There are valid points on both sides. But maybe we're arguing over the wrong thing. Maybe we should discuss something else.
So her point is that we should try to avoid the problem at the beginning before we have to make these terrible decisions at the end. So what's her idea? She says instead of debating whether we should have a death penalty or not, instead we should focus on addressing the root causes of violent crime, such as poverty and mental illness. So this kind of gets into what Aiden was saying in our first paragraph. He was talking about spending more time on crime prevention and rehabilitation, making sure that criminals aren't created in the first place. That matches well with what Zoe's saying. Address the root causes. Why do people commit violent crime? What are the basic factors that motivate people to do this or get people into a lifestyle where they do this kind of thing? The root causes of going right down to the very beginning. Where is this coming from? Why is this happening? I don't want to know about the end part of it. I want to know about the beginning part of it. People don't just wake up in their 20s and go, I'm going to commit murder today. They usually have been going on a path towards a life of crime and violence from their early days, from being a child. So poverty can come into it. Mental illness can come into it. People with, emotional problems in their life, problems with their education, finding food and a job and that kind of thing. Not often, but that can, in many cases, lead to criminal behavior later on in life. So let's fix the problem before it becomes a problem. All right, we have Julia and Lauren coming up next in the third part of our article.
Julia, killing another person is immoral and a violation of basic human rights. No one should be allowed to take another's life, not even the government. Mature societies all over the world have been dropping the death penalty, and many countries that still have it seldom actually use it. Lauren, life imprisonment without parole seems like a better option. It allows for the possibility of rehabilitation and avoids the risk of executing an innocent person.
第三部分看到 violation 这个单字，它是名词，指侵犯，也可以是违反行为或是违规。举例来说 The court ruled that the company's actions were a violation of the workers' rights. 法院裁定该公司的行为侵犯了工人的权利。或者 Driving through a red light is a traffic violation. 开车闯红灯是交通违规行为。
Okay, here's what Julia has to say about this question. Should we kill the death penalty? She says killing another person is immoral and a violation of basic human rights. I think most people would agree to that. If you murder or kill another person, well, that is immoral. It's not something you should be doing if you're a good person. And again, it's a violation of basic human rights. A violation just means you've committed an error in terms of the law. You violate someone, you violate something, you break the law in this particular case, and it's a violation of basic human rights. You've been deprived of your human rights. You deserve to be treated like an animal or something like that.
All right, so for Julia, this is also a kind of fundamental thing. As a human, it's just wrong to do this to other humans. She says no one should be allowed to take another's life, not even the government. If murdering someone in a rainy street corner robbery in the middle of the night is wrong, then murdering someone in a death chamber in an electric chair, or, shooting them with a bullet from a policeman or a soldier's gun while the government says that's okay is just as wrong. It's still murder. She says mature societies all over the world have been dropping the death penalty, and many countries that still have it seldom actually use it. When she says mature societies, she's kind of talking about the more progressive, more modern, more liberal societies that have the more enlightened concepts, kind of moving away from these sort of biblical ideas of good and bad and right and wrong, and you did something to me, I do something to you. Let's move to a higher level slightly here and try to think about it in a more kind-hearted and sort of more progressive, modern, liberal way. So mature societies, meaning countries in Europe, for example, and many countries that still have it seldom actually use it. So there are some countries that still have the death penalty as a legal option, but the last time they've actually used it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. It might still be on the books as a law, but it's not really a law. It's not a punishment that is used in the normal course of things. People in society think it's just not right to do it anymore. And then we have Lauren. So let's see what Lauren has. This is our last opinion. She says life imprisonment without parole seems like a better option. So here we are. We're not going to be kind to the criminals necessarily and just give them a slap on the wrist and say, don't murder anyone again as we let them out. No, we're going to keep them in prison forever. That's life imprisonment. You will be in prison. You will be locked up in a prison, in a jail, that kind of idea, until the end of your life. You will grow old, grow gray, and die, and you will never get out. Even if you're a model prisoner, even if you promise to never do anything ever again, you are in prison without parole, because parole is basically when the prison system and the country's laws allow you, a prisoner who has been convicted of a crime, allow you to get out of jail once you've served a certain amount of time. This might be based on a certain ratio that they have, like if you've served the half of your time, you're allowed out, but you'll also have to show that you've changed your ways. You'll have to avoid being in trouble in prison by getting in fights or doing anything else illegal. And if they kind of feel like you've learned your lesson and you've changed and you've become a better person and you are no longer a danger to society, they will let you out. Most countries, though, for murder, they don't often have this. It kind of depends on the country you're talking about, and if it is something that is possible for murderers, it is after many, many years, usually 20 to 25 years in jail, you might be allowed out, but life imprisonment without parole means you will never be allowed out. You will be not murdered by the state, but you will be locked up for the rest of your days.
And she goes on to say, it allows for the possibility of rehabilitation and avoids the risk of executing an innocent person. So she's saying that if you imprison somebody for life without parole, then that reduces the possibility of them committing the crime again. Of course, they're in prison, but it increases the possibility of rehabilitation. They might regret what they have done and become a nice person again. and also it gets rid of the risk of executing the wrong person. Of course, we don't want to do that if they later find out that the person was innocent, that the person was nowhere near the site of the crime and they were innocent, but you killed them anyway. That prevents the risk of that. That is Lauren's opinion. So we have kind of a split table here of opinions. Some people support it, some don't. And it's kind of interesting to see them debating it this way.
Yes, a lot of food for thought here, a lot of things to think about and different interesting points of view that do illuminate some of the real struggles that people have and the real issues that come with this idea of the death penalty. All right, let's go over to Hanny. We don't want to get the grammar penalty from her, so we're going to go over to her and listen to that, and then we'll be back with our discussion starter.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第二部分里， Megan 有提到一句俗语 An eye for an eye， 以眼还眼，并说到 That seems fair to me， 那对我来说似乎很公平。而在课文第三部分， Lauren 则认为不得假释的无期徒刑似乎是比较好的选择，那他是用 seems like a better option 表达似乎是比较好的选择。我们来看看连缀动词 seem 呢，它表示似乎好像。我们来整理它的常见用法。第一个可以用 seem 加形容词，像是 Amy seemed upset this morning， Amy 今天早上似乎不开心。第二个我们可以用 seem like 加名词或加子句，例如 It seems like she's determined to win， 她似乎有必胜的决心。第三个我们可以用 seem 加上 as if 或是 as though 再加主词加动词，例如 When they first met It seemed as if they had known each other for a long time， 他们初次见面时仿佛已经认识彼此很久了。第四个我们可以用 seem to 加原形动词，像 Everyone seemed to enjoy the show， 大家似乎都很喜欢这场表演。那要注意的是，如果我们把动词的部分改成完成式 seem to have 加上 PP， 这时候则表达似乎已经怎么样怎么样，用来指动作或事情已经完成，像是 The problem seems to have been solved， 那个问题似乎已经解决了。那第五个介绍的句型是 It seems that 主词加动词，像 It seems that Dave is the right person for the job，Dave 似乎是那份工作的最佳人选。好，那在课文第三部分 Julia 提到 No one should be allowed to take another's life， 没有人可以被允许夺走别人的性命。动词 allow 它有允许、准许的意思，常常用 allow somebody to 加原形动词，表达允许某人做某事。那文中是用到被动语态 somebody be allowed to 加原形动词，也就是某人被允许做某事。好，那另外 allow somebody to 加原形动词呢，也可以表达出让某人得以怎么样，能够怎么样。像我们可以说 This app allows you to create your own emoji， 这款应用程式让你可以创造自己的表情符号。好，然后同样在这个段落Lauren 在讲到不得假释的无期徒刑时，他说 It allows for the possibility of rehabilitation， 它提供了改过自新的可能性。Allow for 在这边是表达使什么成为可能，允许什么什么。那我们补充一下 Allow for 还有另外一个意思，是指考量到，把什么计算在内，也就是呢，你在做规划在做计算时，把某事物考虑进去。像 Please arrive early, allowing for traffic and parking， 考量到交通状况及停车，请提早抵达。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Economist. Economists have predicted that the country's economy will grow by 3% next year. Implication. The study discusses the implications of climate change for farmers. Prevention. Regular exercise is important for the prevention of heart disease. Commit. Jack was arrested for committing the crime of drunk driving. Valid. Laverne asked a valid question about the project's budget that no one had considered before. Violation. Any violation of an individual's freedom of speech is a serious matter.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter. The question is, do you think that the use of the death penalty should be ended? Why or why not?
Well, I'll go with the easy one. Yes, given that the police do make mistakes and people have been convicted wrongfully, I don't think government should be able to impose the death penalty because executing an innocent person means the government is engaging in murder.
Okay, well, that's your opinion, but no, I disagree with those seeking to stop the use of the death penalty. I disagree because so many people here in Taiwan support the death penalty, and if I say I'm against the death penalty, I risk being assaulted by them, criticized by them, I'll lose my friends, I'll lose my job, so I don't want that to happen. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.